Welcome to Guerrilla Discipleship. My name is Kevin Baker.
I'm Tim Parker.
We get to host our time together, and we're just always in awe of the fact that we get to do this and get to talk with you about what it looks like to be disciples who make disciples who make disciples. And we're in a little few-week series here about more in 24. We're talking about the fact that 95% of Christians have never helped lead one person to a place where they understand God's love for them and are now walking and following Jesus. And so we're basically saying that we want to invite all of us to be in that 5% that could say, wow, God has given us one of the greatest gifts in the world, and that is that we've been used by him to help introduce someone to Jesus in a way that's actually radically transformed their life and given them life. It's like a birthing. You know, the Bible talks about this new life, this new birth. And so we're looking to be spiritual parents going into 2024. And my prayer for all of us is that we will have big spiritual families. You may have one, maybe you're not even a parent at all, or maybe you have one or two kids. We have 5. Tim has, how many you have?
2.
2. I just want to make sure he knew. I'm hoping that we have hundreds of spiritual children in 2024 and beyond as God uses us to bless them. So we've been talking about how to do that. Just to review, if you're kind of just plugging in with us, we've been looking at this acronym of BLESS. Maybe Tim would just review where we've been.
Begin with prayer and listen to others. Okay. We also, I think we had 3 P's.
Yeah, we did.
I forget all what they were, but they were listen.
Well, we were, Since neither of us can remember exactly what those 3 P's were, go back and watch last week's episode. But today we're going to talk about the E in BLESS,
which is one of my favorite activities, eating.
Mine too. And say more about it. So what are we doing? Why is BLESS a part of becoming a spiritual parent? Why is eating a part of becoming a spiritual parent?
I think that eating is a key piece of disciple making, because there's a level of intimacy and intention and conversation and comfort that takes place while we're eating a meal together. I was just talking to Kevin before we started. I said, I don't think we typically as humans eat at places when we're in fight or flight mode, or eating when we're not finding peace. Eating is usually a time of comfort, a time of relaxation. And when you share a meal with people, there's just some sort of, I don't know how to put a word to it. I'm not sure if it's a psychological thing or if it's a biochemistry thing that just tears and breaks down the walls.
Yeah.
We even said earlier that we don't often eat with enemies. Even if we do, you do it for long enough, eventually you're not an enemy anymore. I think maybe that's why in middle school when people get in fights, I'm going to go eat with someone else. They get upset. But there's just something powerful about inviting someone to eat in a world where we're always running, always texting. We don't even have phone calls anymore, because that's just a conducive to a conversation with nothing else. Yeah. It's a conversation where there's no screens, no anything else to take away except for the person in front of you.
Could be screens. People look at their phone even at the table.
Well, what we're asking is no screens if possible.
Right.
And just get to really know someone. So we talked about listening, but really listening maybe more than just with your ear or on a sidewalk or at work or on the phone, is really saying, hey, we're going to take this hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours to eat and really listen. And then that's when you can really dig deep into conversation. You can see their body language. You can hear their heart. And also it creates opportunities, which is another S we'll get to later, to learn how to share your story or how to serve them. It's kind of a deeper level of listening that I don't think we always have in our culture. And I think it's a really big rhythm that we see oftentimes in the Bible. I'll say this one and then you can maybe share some passages too. Yeah. The first one that comes to mind is Zacchaeus. So Jesus is walking down the road. I believe it's in Jericho. Zacchaeus, the wee little man, I'm sure he's not happy about that, getting that caricature. That's how we describe him, is up in a tree. Jesus says, hey, I'm coming down. I'm going to eat at your house. Yeah. And after he ate at his house, he paid back everyone double. He restored everything. You see some restorative justice. And he, from what we can tell, becomes a follower of Jesus. And so there's just something powerful to the meal. There's tons of parables about it as well, too, that I think that's a pivotal point. We can always talk at people or pray with people in passing or on the phone or on social media, but not once you stop and agree to pause with someone else. I think that's a key movement towards being spiritually obvious, towards having spiritual conversations, towards having invitations. It's that that meal is a place where that happens. It doesn't have to be a big meal. Doesn't have to be a fancy meal. Doesn't have to be, you don't have to pull out all the stops. It just needs to be, hey, let's take some time to eat together.
Boy, Tim, I appreciate all of that you just said. I want to say a couple of things. First of all, there's so much about eating in the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation. We were created for food, and the reality is, or to need food. The reality is, God in His wonderful teaching on how to pray said, "Pray for our daily bread." This idea that. But I mean, think about all the festivals in the Hebrew scriptures and with the Hebrew people. God loved those. They're often, in fact, one of the most unbelievable festivals. The Passover festival was all about food, and every part of the meal had symbolism. And so food's important to us. It's important to God. Meals are important. We gather together. We invite all of our family and friends. It's kind of interesting. We're almost at Thanksgiving. And so you and I, all of us, are going to be eating, hopefully, with friends and family. I was thinking also, as you get older, it goes out of your head. I was hoping it wouldn't. So I'm going to have to come back to it. But something else Tim said there that just reminded me of something about eating. But I'll come back to it when my old brain clicks back in. But eating is, I know what I was going to say. See how it works? You'll all get old too. I would say not only don't be a big meal, but don't worry about cleaning your house. And we're inviting people to see who we are. We're not putting on airs. We're not putting on a show. We're not trying to impress. We're trying to be real with people. And so one of the things that I think often hinders us from inviting people over in our culture is that we've been so used to impressing people with our homes, with our decorations, with our menu. That's the opposite of what Jesus, I think, did, and what we're encouraging. What we're encouraging is just invite people into your home. Let them see who your family is. Because here's the thing: your family is probably very much like their family. Another thing that occurred to me about eating, I've said this before. My dad had an anger problem, and one of the biggest places where our family gathered was my mom cooked dinner every night. We had family dinner pretty much every night. But family dinner for me was not always a very restful place, because that was where anger could be. And I can remember lots of meals as a kid where my stomach was in a knot while I was trying to eat, because there was an unsettledness in the room. There was anger. There was just an uncomfortability around that. And so even that's kind of interesting, right? That it's hard to eat. I mean, maybe I'm trying to tie this into what you said, Tim. It's hard to eat with enemies because our bodies are in this fight or flight kind of place, in defense mode. And some of you may know what I'm talking about in terms of your dinner table being very much not a peaceful place. But eating is meant for us to actually enjoy the food. In fact, one of the reasons I've read that people in our culture gain weight is that we have lost the art of eating. We eat while we're doing other things. We work while we eat. We watch television while we eat. So we're not really enjoying the food. We're not processing food well. We tend to eat poorly. We tend to eat more than we should. We tend to eat the things that aren't healthy for us, instead of actually sitting down at the table and making the enjoyment of food and the enjoyment of each other's company really something that we're after. So all of that to say, we're talking a lot about different aspects of meals and food, but the idea of taking someone to lunch, hey, or going out to lunch, you don't even have to take them, but just to invite a coworker, hey, let's get lunch sometime, or a friend, hey, could we grab some coffee? Because it doesn't have to be a full meal. Just grabbing coffee. One of the reasons most churches these days, and we do too, we have coffee and refreshments in between our services, is because it's easier to talk to someone with something in your hand. It opens the door for some conversation while you're sharing a donut or having a donut and talking about coffee or talking with coffee. So that's what we're saying, that as we think through how are we going to become spiritual parents, how are we going to have spiritual conversations? What is it going to look like for us to be used by God? Food, meals, inviting people into our homes is going to be a critical part.
I like the level that you put there. It's kind of like, hey, get coffee together.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe we get lunch together. Maybe even if I want to show you God's blessing in my life, I even treat you if that's something you can financially swing. And then maybe even, hey, come meet my family, which is even way more intimate. I love that.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of things, I think it's also important that when someone invites you to their house or invites you to go eat, even if they're the person that smells funny or annoys you at work or maybe doesn't speak the same language you well fluently, you don't say, or maybe even this happens occasionally. I think maybe it happens to you too as well. Someone who doesn't awfully have a lot, you kind of know they don't have a lot, and they still invite you over. You don't go, oh man, like you don't have furniture in your house, or oh no, like I don't like your food. I think as disciple makers, when someone invites you in, you just go. Yeah. I mean, maybe you eat McDonald's before or after. I don't know. Don't worry about that. But I think you shouldn't, especially if you've been praying for this person, or especially if you feel God prompting you, turn it down, however uncomfortable it might actually be.
I have a weird story that just popped into my head about food that is a little bit different than this, but I'm going to tell it. We'll see what happens. It just happened this week. Let's see, today, it's a couple of days ago, I was here in Olney, and I needed to get some food, and I ran to Safeway, and I was on the phone. It was a crazy day, crazy busy day. And as I'm walking into Safeway, I'm talking on my phone, which I don't like to be in stores talking on my phone, but I figured I'd end the conversation as soon as I got in the store. But as I approached the Safeway here in Olney, there was a man standing outside the door, and I noticed that as I got closer, I noticed that it looked like I was going to be confronted. Mm-hmm. And so he said to me, as I'm still on the phone, and I'm walking I walk at a fast pace, and he said to me, could you give me a couple of dollars for some food? So this is what happened. I told the person on the phone, I said, hey, I need to hang up. And I said, sure, come on in, and I'll buy you some food. And so we get into the store. I'm in a hurry. He says, do you want me to just meet you back here and get what I want and come back here? I said, yeah, I'm going to go get what I need. You go get what you need. So we were both only a couple of minutes. We meet back, and he had a rotisserie chicken, a bag of potato chips, and two big things of brownies. I mean, already made up brownies. And he said, this is all I'm getting. And I said, okay, great. So we go over. I'm still in a hurry. So we go over to the self-checkout, and I said, you go ahead and check out you go ahead and do your items first. And he's doing checking his items out, and he's putting them in a bag. I hate paying for bags. And I just say this.
That's exactly what I was thinking when you said that.
And so he starts putting them in like 4 bags, and I'm like, hey, could you just use 2 bags? I can't believe I'm spending $30 helping this guy have a meal, but I'm penny pitching him on a bag because somehow philosophically that just irritated me. But anyway, so he's like, oh yeah, I can fit it in 2 bags. And I'm like, okay, great. And so he gets his bags, and he said, thank you. And I said, yeah. And I made sure, this is what I said to him. I said, while he was putting his stuff in his bags, I put my hand on his shoulder, and I said, hey, I just want you to know that God really loves you. And he said, oh, I believe in God. And I said, well, all of what I'm doing here is really just to show you the love of God. And he walked out. He went ahead. I said, that's fine. You go ahead. I'm just going to finish paying for my stuff. And he went ahead. After that experience, the next day, I realized what a failure I had been in that. I wonder if you know the failure. Do you see the failure in it? Because at first
you could have offered to eat with them. Is that what you're thinking?
No.
Okay.
Here's what I didn't do. I don't think I did anything in that like Jesus would, because I didn't treat him like a person. He was a bit of a bother to me. I was trying to help him, but I never once did this. I didn't say, hey, my name's Kevin. What's your name?
No.
I didn't spend any moments getting to know him. And I a little bit, if I'm honest, I'm sort of going through this busy thing, patting myself on the back like, oh, look, I'm buying this guy dinner.
It was more transactional than transformational.
It was exactly right. Everything I did with him was transactional. And I had a moment where I could have stopped and said, okay, yeah, I'm in a hurry, but I could have stopped to say, hey, my name's Kevin. What's your name? Asked a few questions about what was going on. Man, is this something that's an ongoing need for you? And figured out how to actually meet him in his life. All I did was process a transaction that I'll never, I don't know what the cost of all of that was, but if it was $30, I'm not going to miss that
$30.50.
Yeah, whatever.
For the two plastic bags.
Yeah. I'm not going to miss that $30, but I missed an opportunity. So I'm not trying to be hard on myself. I'm just trying to say that there's so much more to this. It ties into the food thing in the sense that it's not just giving food. We're not just feeding bodies. We're actually trying to have a relationship and there's something, as Tim said earlier, there's something about food that opens the door to intimacy, to just sharing life together in a way that that it allows us to go in that conversation quadrant. It allows us to go from, casual conversation to usually meaningful, even spiritual conversation. It just lends itself that way because food seems to open the door that way. So as you're blessing people, and we're going to continue to finish this out, but bless is begin by prayer. Pray for yourself. Pray for, this is what I think we said, pray for the person that you're asking that God, who it is, and then pray for partners in all of this. Begin to listen to God, listen to others, listen. I'd say I had a moment to listen, and I didn't choose to do it. I missed a listening moment there. And then the E is invite people to eat with you and allow people to invite you to eat with them. Try and say yes to as many of those opportunities and look at them as spiritual opportunities for God to join you, and make sure they're not transactional, but that they're actually relational so that God can use those relationships. Because the kingdom of God is all about relationships, and we build the kingdom through relationships. Tim, anything else that you want to
No,
say?
I love that. I know it's difficult to be invited over sometimes.
Yeah.
But bite the bullet and do it. I can think of all the times I've been invited over to eat at someone's house that I was hesitant to go to. And 10 times out of 10, it was a transformational experience for me and or for them.
And it's time, right? At least for me, a lot of times it's like, I can grab something. I need to eat. I know I need to eat, but if I go over to someone's house, it's going to be a couple of hour visit. And do I have the time for that? Well, it takes time to give birth to a child. It takes time to get pregnant. It takes time for that baby to develop. Spiritual birth takes time. Let's let God have the time, and eating is one of the ways that we can do it. Hey, thanks so much for being a part of Guerrilla Discipleship. Tim and I love talking with you. We want to hear back from you. As Tim always says, you can make comments in the bottom here at the screen. You can also email us, kbaker@oakdale.church.
tparker@oakdale.church.
And we'll see you next week.